Welcome on back to the Wolverine TV. Clayton Safey here with EJ Holland and Tim Verghese. Join us over at thewolverine.com. $1 gets you an entire year of our premium content. So go and do that right now. Limited time offer. Also, our football recruiting issue of the Wolverine magazine is out right now. It looks great. Class of 2022, so features on every signee, analysis on the entire class, much more content, also the regular football, basketball stuff as well. So go to thewolverineondemand.com. You can get your copy right now. Will Johnson is on the cover. It looks pretty sweet. The hometown hero there, the 5-star defensive back. So go get your copy right now. 100 pages of a bunch of great content on top of what we have on the site. So go and do that. We're going to break down 5 recruits, Michigan recruits that these two guys saw over the weekend. And EJ, let's start with a guy who is widely known, 5-star wide receiver, Carnell Tate there that you saw at Pylon, Chicago. Break it down for us. What do you like so much about his game?
Yeah, I love Carnell Tate. He's about 6'2" and a half, 178 pounds, just a really tall, long wide receiver to the point. His arms really basically hang down to his knees. I mean, he has such a tremendous catch radius. He's a guy that can just tear it up over the middle on slants, drags. A guy that can also, take the top off of defense. He has enough speed to do that and get deep. He's great in the red zone, great leaping ability, body control, great hands. But what I love the most about Carnell is he's a bigger type of outside wide receiver. He has no issue getting in and out of his breaks. He has great flexibility, just a really technical route runner. And he's a 5-star for a reason. Michigan offered Tate early. They were considered an early contender in his recruitment. And then things just kind of went off the cliff. He never really visited. Gaddis did a poor job of recruiting him before he left to Miami. Like we talked about in our other video, he kind of started to fade on the trail, and relationships just weren't there. Sharon Moore initially offered him as an underclassman. Tate is originally from Chicago. He actually attended Marist, same school as Jimmy Rolder. But yeah, Moore came out, he saw him and offered, and then Moore switched over to really focusing more on the offensive line as opposed to his area recruiting. And so contact dropped off there. But now that Moore's been promoted to offensive coordinator and will have more say over offensive recruiting, I expect that relationship to pick up. Ron Bellamy made it a point to reach out to Carnell Tate first. He is a top priority on the board, but Michigan does have a lot of catching up to do. Ohio State, Notre Dame are considered the 2 early leaders in his recruitment. And then he's looking at plenty of schools down south: Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Miami. Several others are also in the race, but obviously a tremendous talent. Does have some good ties to Michigan. Again, he's from Chicago, so he's a Midwest kid. He's from the same 7-on-7 program that produced Tyler Morris and JJ McCarthy. JJ's been actively recruiting him. And like I said, same school as Jimmy Rolder, so he knows Jimmy as well and his family. So it's going to be interesting to see if Bellamy can make up for Gaddis's lost time and get Michigan back in this recruitment.
Now Gaddis has to recruit him for Miami. So
Yeah, now Gaddis has to recruit him in Miami.
yeah, so that's interesting, obviously. And then Tim was down in Dallas at a few different events. And Tim, let's start with you. 4-star interior offensive lineman, the number 91 player in the class of 2023, Marcus Diehl. Break him down for us.
Yeah, I got to see Diehl at the UC Report Power Academy on Saturday. And I kind of like to list him as an athlete more so than an interior lineman. I think most people would agree his ceiling is higher on the interior of the offensive line, but he kind of sees himself better and feels more comfortable as a defensive lineman, preferably obviously a defensive tackle. He kind of competed there at the UC Report. Didn't really go through one-on-ones. He kind of left before that. But, from the drills, you can just see he's a high-end athlete, moves really well, especially kind of laterally, which is why, people do see him as a high priority with a higher ceiling on the offensive side of the ball. But, really like what I saw from him, got a good base, and I think he's slimming down too to kind of better fit the defensive side of the ball. So, he's kind of getting into he's transforming his body into something we haven't seen from him the last couple of years. So I'm very intrigued to kind of see, what his senior season kind of looks like as he continues to trim down. He's doing track as well, so that'll continue to help him kind of trim down and do things like that. But on the recruiting side of things, Michigan is heavy in his ear. Two other targets we'll talk about, Ino Etta and Trey Wilson, are both heavy in his ear about Michigan. And he's going to look and try and make his first visit up here soon. He told me pretty much outright Michigan's in his top 5, but they're kind of at the bottom of that 5 because he hasn't visited. He's got schools like A&M and TCU that he's visited multiple times. He knows the coaches, he knows the campus well. Whereas with Michigan, he's yet to visit, but he'll look to change that here soon, and potentially return for a couple of visits here between March and the summer.
And then EJ, let's talk about a 5-star plus on the On3 consensus. Number 3 player in the country, Cormani McLean, corner out of Florida, but obviously up in Chicago over the weekend. What were your thoughts on him, and did he get to go against Carnell Tate at all? And if so, what'd you see out of the matchup?
So Carnell Tate and Cormani McClain actually played on the same team.
There you go. Okay.
So it was a pretty loaded team. But yeah, Cormani McClain is, again, considered the number 1 cornerback recruiting the country. Not hard to see why. He is skinny. He'll have to add some weight and strength to his frame, but he is a guy that plays with excellent technique, great ball skills. Didn't see a ton of action come his way, but when he did, he had a couple of pass deflections as well as an interception. Also lined up at wide receiver and had one of the best catches of the entire tournament. So he's definitely an elite level athlete. Michigan making him a high level priority. Again, going to be really tough to pull out of the South, all the big time SEC schools, as well as in-state programs like Miami and Florida State are all after him. But he does have a top group right now, a top 6 that's kind of expanded, I suppose. Michigan is in there. He said he's willing to leave the South to explore some other options. And I think if Michigan can get him on campus, they can create some real movement with him. Michigan's had some success recruiting in the state of Florida under Jim Harbaugh. They've landed guys that have been intrigued by SEC programs. I mean, again, Cormani McLean's such a high-level recruit that it's going to be a tough one. But I think Michigan, coming off a college football playoff, if they can get him on campus and press him on the visit, which, again, McLean does plan to be in Ann Arbor at some point this spring, you never know. But he's a really, really impressive looking athlete. I think he's a guy that would be a tremendous compliment to what Michigan was able to land in the secondary this past cycle.
Tim, we'll finish with 2 guys for you. First, Ino Etta. I may be pronouncing that wrong, but a 4-star edge, 6'4", 219 pounds, out of Covenant Christian Academy in Colleyville, Texas. Tell us about him and the possible pronunciation.
It's Ino Etta. But yeah, I saw Ino a couple times actually over the weekend. I got into Dallas on Thursday and drove straight to Covenant Christian Academy, where his trainer was holding a private training session for him. Kind of got to hang out and see him in person, talk to his trainer about him, kind of get a better feel for who he is as a prospect. I think he's still listed. We're once we get updated measurements from this Power Academy on Saturday, we're going to update his height. Right now, and on 3, I think he's listed as 219 pounds or something, still under 220, but he's filled out quite well. He's up to 250 right now, holds that really well, and still has a frame that can add. I think he could play at 300 at the college level. Like, I don't think that's out of reach for him, and I think he can hit that weight pretty comfortably. He is seen as an edge or a 3-tech. He feels comfortable at both positions, would prefer to be more of an edge rusher. But I really like him as a 3-tech at the next level. Very powerful, very strong base, still kind of figuring out a lot of things, but his trainer is also his D-line coach over at Covenant Christian Academy, which helps him a lot because, it's not just he doesn't get just 3-4 sessions with him a week. He's pretty much with him every single day in some capacity, learning something new about the game. Obviously, level of competition at a private school in Dallas is a little limited, but he dominates the way you'd expect. And as he continues to fill out, I think his senior year is going to be something special. Funny enough, at his weight, he's running the 200 meter and potentially even the 4x200 meter, which is really impressive. But yeah, on the recruiting side of things, Michigan, Mike Elston was one of the first to he was one of Mike Elston's first offers since moving over. Elston's made him a priority. Eno visited just right before the dead period, had a very, very strong visit. Really likes a lot about Michigan, kind of likes the way they want to use him in the offense, on the defense. They're going to use him kind of all over the place. So I think it's Michigan and Stanford up there for him. Heard from a source this weekend that for him, he probably prefers Michigan, but his parents may be leaning towards Stanford, and he plans to make official visits to both schools, as well as Michigan State, which was another school he stopped by in January. But right now, I think it's Michigan and Stanford ahead of the pack, and I think if Michigan's able to sell his family on kind of the opportunities available and just how important education is at Michigan, obviously education is important at Stanford, but show that education is legitimately a priority at Michigan. I think this is a recruitment they can win.
And then let's conclude with Trey Wilson, another edge, 3-star prospect there out of Lakeview Centennial in Garland, Texas, former teammate of Ike Iwuna, or same school as Ike Iwuna, current Michigan redshirt freshman defensive tackle. Tell us about Trey Wilson, a guy we've talked a decent amount about over the last few months.
Yeah. And, funny enough, Trey, Marcus, and Ino all trained together. They all have the same trainer. But they were all at the Power Academy. I got to catch up with Trey afterwards. I've been really impressed every single time I've seen Trey. I saw him last year at the SMU Mega Camp. That was my first time seeing him, and I remember like pointing to someone and being like, "Yo, who is that?" And I was like, "I really like him," and they were like, "Yeah, it's Trey Wilson." And all of that makes sense. And then seeing him again here, just very powerful, very fast, very athletic, coming off the edge. I think he's a little undersized for what Michigan kind of wants, and we've talked about that before. How on this like ever-growing edge board, he kind of is, kind of maybe a tier 2 prospect or kind of lower on that board. But his interest in Michigan is really, really high. Kind of funny enough, in the interview, he kind of referred to Michigan as we at one point. So I think Michigan is far and away the favorite here. I think that what's going to happen is going to be, it just depends on if he's a take or not. I think him and Ino want to play together at the next level. I've talked about that. If I was Michigan, I would take the 2. I really do like Trey, even though obviously he's kind of, he's 6'3", not exactly the height you're looking for a stand-up edge, especially in the Big Ten. But, he's productive enough. He's got the interest, he's bought in, he'd be a heck of a peer recruiter. And so, I think that's just one that I think, Michigan should have to make a decision on sooner rather than later, just to avoid losing any of that interest just by, kind of playing him off for a couple months.
Okay, so potential package deal there. So that is going to be our show for today. We thank our sponsors, Lewis Jewelers. Remember to get that 2022 Michigan football recruiting issue of the Wolverine magazine at thewolverineondemand.com. Get your copy right now. Will Johnson on the cover featuring all the signees, analysis, a look ahead to the 2023 class as well. So go and do that right now, and we'll see everybody next time.